Many students think of their CV as a dry document which they produce once and then fire off to as many employers as possible. But an effective CV or an application form is an individual sales pitch, more like a movie trailer than a boring catalogue.
You have to sell yourself within the first 10 seconds of someone picking it up. So the first few sentences or the first thing that they see needs to be something that they want to carry on reading. So with that knowledge, I went and I did it that way, yeah.
A CV is a marketing document, and it's the first opportunity that you've got to present the brand that you want the organisation to believe in, which is brand you, but also selling the skills, selling experience, selling anything that they've learned and developed was, well, not only at university but outside of university as well.
What matters on a CV is that you present it in terms of a story, a convincing story, a narrative in which you're the hero of your CV. I've overcome all these obstacles, barriers, I've completed these different challenges, and this is why it's a compelling story to employers. It's your pitch to an employer.
It's all about telling me why you think I should be interested in your CV. A list of your achievements is great, and we're all very proud of it and well done, but actually you're not showing me that you understand what I might be looking for in a prospective employee. You're not showing me that you understand our business specifically. It's time consuming, but if you're going to spend time on anything, then getting your first job is surely one of those things where you shouldn't mind investing that time, really.
Are you happy that what you've said about this really tells somebody in just very few words what you actually did?
She's taking a huge risk that on the basis of not very much of a story, somebody is going to invite her in to tell her story. She doesn't need to take that much of a risk. She can tell more of her story. She can get more hooks out there. She needs to think more about her CV as her first shot, and it may be her only shot. Why am I saying this? What does it say about me, and what have I learnt from it? That's one narrative that somebody might very well want to be able to tease out.
Think about this in a PR context. This is her first PR opportunity. She's her first client, and I'm the audience she's trying to reach. So she's got to try and think of it in terms of what is it that I'm going to be looking for, and so then what is the content that she needs to create within that CV that's going to kind of push my buttons and make me want to read more of it.
There needs to be something positive that impresses you about the CV to keep it out of the reject heap. It's not just manifest rubbish, it's boring stuff that goes into the reject heap, I'm afraid.
Each CV you send out needs to be targeted at one specific employer and one specific role.
Every single job that you apply for, your CV does need to be adapted to them. They're going to want to hear what they want to hear. You don't have a generic one for each one. So I would adapt your CV to the job that you're applying for.
You get applications where they've put all of the people they've sent it to in the CC box in the email, so I know exactly who else they've sent it. You get cut and paste ones where they actually say, I've read your website and I think blank looks like one of the best consultancies in South Wales, where blank is actually the name of one of my competitors because they haven't done the cut and paste right.
In terms of competition at the moment, it's very fierce. There are a number of graduates applying to us as an organisation who have the skills and the abilities needed to perform the tasks that we would want them to perform on our graduate scheme. The difference between those applying and those succeeding at the moment is the ability to demonstrate a clear motivation for working in a particular company or a particular industry. So as an applicant, I think it's vitally important that, as well as explaining the competencies and your experience as well, you must be able to demonstrate why it is that you would want to work for that particular company.
I would expect a candidate to know about the company, about the industry, and have a certain amount of confidence around their own experiences and examples really of things they've been involved in, which would hopefully demonstrate their motivation and commitment should they be offered a position within the company.
Once you've got the basic things right, it's about approaching it a little bit like the PR exercise, working out what it is that's going to interest me, going to the effort of finding out my name, writing to me personally, telling me that you see from a LinkedIn profile that we went to the same university, or that you see from our website that we do some work for environmental clients and that's been one of your hobbies or societies at university. All this information's out there, and if it's not out there, you can always pick a phone up and ask a receptionist, or ask around. You can find these things out.
Compress it into 2 pages, and the way you present your qualifications, is not necessary to list them all. It was better to compress them as well and just list what you got rather than every single subject. So absolutely I took that advice on board, and it did work for me, definitely.
They reckon on average that a decision is made on a CV within 30 seconds. And if you're listing everything chronologically, and believe it or not, a lot of people list them last at the back, so you have to work your way through it, then recruiters just don't have the time to look at them.
She's got to show me that she's gone out and got some relevant experience, or that her hobbies are relevant, and not just sort of present them in a list, but actually draw the relevant bits out in some way. So you get a CV that tells me her A-levels and GCSEs and things first, and then I've got to get to page 2, by which point we get dozens of these. I might not even get to page 2.
What I don't like is looking for information on a CV. Have a very clear formula of what you set out in terms of your personal details, personal profile, education, experience, interests. That's kind of keep it well constructed.
Where you put your information is crucial. So you want to make sure that the strong points of your CV come early on, probably in the top quarter of the first page. Anything longer than 2 sides is war and peace. No one's going to finish it. So it has to be short, it has to be sharp, it has to be punchy.
The biggest turn-off for me as a CV screener is grammatical errors and poor layout of CVs. They must be very, very clear in order for you to get your message across, and that's before we even consider looking at the content.
You see so many with basic mistakes. We're client service business. Attention to detail is absolutely vital, and people make basic errors and straight in the bin. And you stand up in front of a lecture hall of students and say that to them, and they sort of laugh a bit, as if nobody really worries about apostrophes. Well, clients and the media and we mind about apostrophes, so you want to get them right first thing.
People aren't spending the time looking at what they're actually putting down on that application form. They're not looking at the skills that we've required, and they're not checking their applications for the professionalism side, the spell checks, those kind of things. They're just not evident.
Employers are looking for a narrative of employability. In other words, they're looking for a story. They're looking to see your story, to see what you've achieved, how you've overcome obstacles, barriers, and how you've grown as a person. They want to see this storyline on an application. What they don't want is a list of isolated facts and dates. That's important, but increasingly they want to see what you've gained from that makes you a unique applicant and someone ultimately that they want to hire. So your argument, your story has to be convincing. It has to show you in a positive light. So you have to emphasise all the positives that you've gained from each experience and show how you've grown and developed from these experiences. Employers also want to see how you've reflected on your experiences, so what you've learnt from different jobs, courses and experiences, and again how that makes you a better bet for the future.
And it's not going to be enough for you to be a nice person. You have got to evidence your skills. And if we are requiring someone to be good in sales and show leadership and have good communication skills, we're going to be checking them on the application form in the way they've answered the questions in psychometric tests and things like that. So that's going to be a gauge as to whether we bring someone through from that application. And often, if you're receiving 200 applications a month, there's probably about 50 of those that will go through to phone interview, and then obviously whittling down to interview. So you have got to really show your skills on paper.
I'm impressed by how much material you've got on here.
Yeah.
This isn't one of those CVs where you think, well, what are we going to talk about? An internship with Alexander McQueen. I put the highlighted pen on it, but I don't need to because those words just come out at you.
Yeah.
Try and make your CV look as good as possible. Get some advice from your career centre, because these are the people that are experts in doing CVs. Get some advice from recruiters if you want. Just make your CV stand out, because that is the first step.
What makes a CV stand out isn't the fonts or layout, but the content. How interesting and relevant is the story you're telling? And if you haven't got interesting and relevant experiences yet, then you need to get some.
It's also a good idea, before you even start writing your CV, to have a couple of minutes to think how I could sell it. What is a unique selling point, a USP? Maybe try and talk to someone about what makes you stand out. We use the idea of the elevator pitch. You know, if you can't get your idea, your USP over to someone in 2 minutes, the time it takes to move up and down a lift, then you probably haven't got a USP. So think seriously about what it is that makes you stand out and distinctive, and then make sure that it stands out on the CV itself.
To sum up, think of your CV and application form as a sales pitch. Target each CV and application form carefully. Structure your CV. Put the most important information high up and give it the most space. Get the grammar and spelling right. If you're struggling for experiences to use, think about how you can get them. And finally, careers service advice is essential.